Adira's laughter rang out across the marketplace, a sound full of life and mischief. She had just heard a scandalous joke from the baker, one so outrageous it made her blush and shake her head, but still she laughed. She relished these moments, the camaraderie of neighbors, the rhythm of Sodom's vibrant streets, the distractions of life that kept her thoughts occupied. The city was far from perfect, and Adira knew it. The bickering, the excess, the occasional cruelty, all of it was woven into the fabric of Sodom and Gomorrah. Yet she loved it still. And it was home, and in its imperfection it reflected something of her own heart. She enjoyed the conveniences of city life, the markets overflowing with goods, the gatherings where wine flowed too freely, the whispered rumors over cups of wine. The drama, though exhausting at times, kept her mind busy, shielding her from the darker memories she rarely allowed herself to revisit. There were shadows in her past she preferred to avoid. The loss of her parents when she was just a child, the early years of her marriage to Lot, a man who seemed perpetually burdened by responsibilities and an unshakable faith she didn't always understand. She had come to Sodom seeking escape, and she'd found it in abundance. Here she could lose herself in the noise, the indulgences, the small, guilty pleasures that made life bearable. She was not blind to the city's flaws, nor to its wickedness. She saw the greed, the exploitation, the way the weak were often trampled underfoot. But she also saw the humanity, the neighbors who shared bread when times were hard, the friends who stayed late into the night laughing and sharing stories. She loved these people fiercely, even in their brokenness. They were her people, and leaving them felt like tearing her own heart in two. The day they fled, the sky turned black with smoke, and the earth trembled beneath her feet. Adira ran beside Lot, their daughters just ahead, but her heart lagged behind. She thought of the widow who lived next door, the one who always brought her figs when she was sick. She thought of the children playing in the square, the merchants calling out their wares, the hum of life she had grown so accustomed to. "Don't look back," Lot had warned, his voice heavy with urgency. But how could she not? How could she abandon everything, everyone she loved, without a final glance? Her feet faltered. Her heart, already torn, overpowered her reason. She turned. The moment her eyes met the devastation, she felt it, a sudden, overwhelming stillness. Her body froze, her limbs locked in place, her vision blurred. She became a pillar of salt, rooted to the ground, watching as the flames consumed the city she had called home. At first, her new existence was torment. She could not move, could not speak, could not cry out. She was trapped, helpless to do anything but watch the ruin smolder in the distance. She replayed the moment of her turning again and again, her heart heavy with regret. Why had she looked back? Was it love? Fear? Or simply her inability to let go? Time passed, though she could no longer measure it. The winds of the Dead Sea swept over her, eroding her form grain by grain. She felt as though she were being destroyed piece by piece, scattered into nothingness. But with each grain that fell away, something within her shifted. The layers of regret, bitterness, and pain began to dissolve, leaving something clearer, purer in their place. In her stillness, Adira began to see her life with new eyes. Adira had always been a survivor. From her earliest years, life had been a tumultuous current that she struggled to navigate. When her parents died of fever, She had been a child, bewildered and alone. The relatives who took her in treated her more like an obligation than family. She was given food and shelter, but little else. At the time, Adira felt utterly abandoned, her young heart aching for the warmth of her parents' love. But in her stillness, encased in salt, she saw those years with new eyes. She realized that it was during this time that she learned to rely on herself. Her independence, her resourcefulness, her grit, they all stemmed from those lonely days that she had no one else to turn to. She saw now that while she lost her parents, she had gained a resilience that carried her through the rest of her life. Her early years of marriage to Lot were another story she had long misunderstood. Lot had always been pious, burdened with the weight of responsibilities and his unwavering faith. Adira, on the other hand, had often felt unseen in their partnership. He prayed and worked tirelessly, but she sometimes thought he cared more for his God than for her. There was one night early in their marriage that had haunted her. She had cooked a fine meal after hours of toil, hoping to draw Lot's attention away from his endless contemplations. When he arrived home, he barely noticed. His mind was on the quarrels in the city and the warnings he claimed to have received from angels. Adira had been furious, feeling small and insignificant. In her stillness, she saw that night with clarity. Lot's seeming disregard wasn't about her. It was about his fear and the pressure he carried to guide and protect their family. And more importantly, that night had sparked something within her, a fierce determination to be more than just a shadow to her husband. It was that determination that had driven her to find her own place in Sodom, to form bonds with neighbors, to create a life full of love and laughter. Her frustrations with Lot had been the very catalyst for her to become a person of her own. She recalled the petty slights of Sodom, the moments of gossip and cruelty that had cut her deeply. One day, the butcher's wife had mocked her for her modest clothing, and Adira had burned with shame. At the time, it seemed a meaningless act of malice. Now she understood it had shaped her. That humiliation had taught her the power of kindness. It had led her to notice others who were overlooked, to reach out to those who were mocked or ignored. She had befriended the widow down the street who rarely spoke to anyone and invited her to share meals. She had taken time to teach the neighborhood children their letters, earning their parents' gratitude. Her own wounds had opened her heart to the pain of others, fostering the deep love she felt for her neighbors. Adira also saw her indulgences with new eyes. She had always laughed at herself for enjoying the drama of Sodom, the squabbles in the marketplace, the whispered rumors over cups of wine. She had dismissed these as frivolous distractions, but now she understood. Those moments had kept her connected to her community. They were not just idle gossip, they were threads that bound her to the people she loved. Even her laughter at off-color jokes and her occasional indulgence in too much wine had a purpose. They had brought levity to lives that were often weighed down by hardship. As her form dissolved into the wind, Adira felt a profound peace. The salt had purified her, stripping away regret and fear, preserving the essence of who she truly was. The moments of pain, the mistakes, the joys, and the sorrows all worked together to shape her. And though she had not understood this in her life, her stillness gave her the perspective to see how everything fit. She understood now that her transformation was not a punishment, but a sacred act of love, a covenant between her and the divine. This covenant is not unique to Adira. It belongs to all of us, woven into the fabric of existence itself. It is the unbreakable promise of the universe, a law as eternal as the stars. Every life, no matter how tangled or flawed, is part of this covenant. Each moment of pain, each mistake, each joy, they are all threads in the divine tapestry, working together to purify and preserve us. The covenant ensures that none of us will be lost. Just as salt preserves and purifies, so too does life, stripping away what is unnecessary and preserving what is eternal. Even when we feel broken or cast aside, we are being shaped, refined, and made whole. This is the great revelation. Life itself is the covenant. It is the unyielding promise that we are loved, that we are perfect, and that in the end, we are pure. For the covenant cannot be broken, and no soul is ever truly lost.